subscribe and click the bell icon to turn on notifications.
We've made the files the instructor uses in this tutorial available for free. Just click the link below in the video details to get these.
Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on Word 2019 Advanced. We're down into section 4, and in this section we're going to explore some of the more advanced features of working with tables in Word. Now, tables are an extremely useful feature and probably something that you utilize already when you're putting together a document. Tables help us organize our information into columns and rows, making the information a lot easier to read. Tables also have their own contextual ribbons where you can change the layout and apply formatting. And you can format tables to your heart's content so that they really stand out from your document or are in line with company branding guidelines. And in this first module, I want to start out by showing you how you can create your own table styles. Now, before we dive straight into that, we're going to do a little bit of a recap and create a table from some data that I have imported into this Word document. So essentially what I have here is some sales information, which originally existed in an Excel spreadsheet. And what I want to do is I want to put this information into this Word document and organize it in a nice table. So all I've really done to pull this across is I've opened up the Excel spreadsheet and I've copied and pasted it with no formatting into my Word document. So if you ever have this situation where you have a bunch of text on the screen and you want to put it into a table, there is a really nice feature in Word called Convert Text to Table, which allows you to do this simply and easily. Now with this data, you'll see in this first line here, this is basically my column headings. And then I have my data for those column headings underneath. But what you'll also see is that it's not quite lined up. Every single field is separated by a tab character. Now, how do I know that? Well, if we turn on our show hide markers, I can see these little arrows indicate that that is a tab separating each of the fields. And this is quite important for an accurate conversion. If you have some consistency with the character that's been used to separate each field, then Word should do a pretty good job at converting your text into a table. Whereas if you have a mixture of different things separating the fields, then you might find that you have to do a little bit of rearranging after you've done the conversion. But our data looks pretty good, so I'm going to turn off my show hide markers and we're going to convert this text to a table. So all I need to do is highlight everything. I'm going to jump up to the insert ribbon and click the lower half of that table drop down. And I'm looking for this option here, Convert Text to Table. And essentially what it does is it looks at my data, it looks at where I have those tab spaces, and it tries to work out how many columns and rows I'm going to need. So it's worked out that I need 7 columns, so that would be right: country, product, units sold, manufacturing price, sale price, and gross sales. And it's worked out that I also need 18 rows. I'm going to say create me a table with fixed column widths, so all of my columns are even. And at the bottom here, I tell it that my text is separated with tab characters. I'm going to click on OK. And let's see how it's done. Well, not too bad. It's guessed that I've got more columns than I actually have. So I'm simply going to come into here, highlight the column that I no longer need. And on my Table Tools layout ribbon, in my rows and columns group, I'm going to select Delete Column. So now that I've deleted that column, it's left me quite a lot of space. The table doesn't automatically resize to accommodate that blank space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to auto fit this table by selecting the entire table up to the layout ribbon, and we have some auto fit options. So auto fit to contents will basically modify the table so that each column is as wide as the widest item in the table. I can auto fit to the window, which will expand the table so that it's flush on either side with the left and right margin, or I can choose a fixed column width so all of my columns are exactly the same size. Now in this case, I want to auto fit to window. And there we go, my table is now a lot more evenly spaced. And if I wanted to, I can go in and I can make some further adjustments simply by dragging these columns over. Now looking at my table and looking at this first column, I can see that this would probably fit a little bit better if I changed United Kingdom and United States of America to UK and USA respectively. So this is where I can utilize find and replace. So up to home, we're going to go all the way across to the editing group and we're going to select replace. And I'm going to say find United Kingdom and replace with UK. I'm going to replace all. And we're going to do the same, but we're going to find United States of America and replace that with USA and replace all. So there we go. With a few edits, my table is now looking a lot neater. So once we're at this stage, I'm probably going to want to jazz this table up a little bit and make it stand out by applying some kind of table style. And we have a whole host of table styles available on the Table Tools Design ribbon. And it's this large group in the middle. We have numerous different options, and it really depends how we want our table to look. So we have some plain table styles. You can see as I hover over, I'm getting that live preview in the document in the background. I have some grid table styles. So this is where we can start to apply some colors. These table styles will give our heading row a color. The next row will give the first column and the heading row a darker color. And there is a whole host of different table styles that you can apply if you scroll through the list. So let's just apply something fairly straightforward. I'm going to apply this Grid Table 4 Accent 5 style. Now it's worth noting that when you do apply a table style, because the table style might make certain words bigger or might make them bold, you might find that you'll need to come back into the table and just rejig some of the widths of these columns again to accommodate the newly formatted text. And also here, I'm not particularly interested in having my countries showing in bold, so I'm going to select them all, and utilizing my mini toolbar pop-up, I'm going to deselect bold. So reasonably quickly, I've been able to use Word's inbuilt table styles to very quickly format a table of data. Now that's all well and good, but what if you want to create your own table style, which maybe aligns more to your company or branding colors or house style? Well, you can definitely do that as well. You'll see right at the bottom, we have an option to create a new table style. And this is going to allow us to define how we want each element of the table formatted. It's then going to save it as a table style, which we can then reuse. So let's quickly create a new style and apply it to our table. So the first thing I need to do here is give my new style a name. So I'm going to call this Deb Table. The style type, well, I'm doing a table style, so I'm going to select table from that list. And then I can basically choose a style to base it on. And this is really like a starting point. So in here, we have lots and lots and lots of different table styles. And if I select one of them, you'll see in the preview window below what that looks like. So if you want to utilize one of these as your starting point, you can do that, and then you can format the various different elements. So I'm going to start with Table Grid Light. And now we can go in and format each of the individual elements of the table. So in the Apply Formatting To drop down, you can see we have whole table, header row, total row, first column, so on and so forth. So you just go through and select where you want to apply the formatting and then set the formatting properties. So I'm going to start out with the whole table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the font for the entire table to this font just here. And I'm actually going to make it slightly smaller because that is quite a large font. And I'm happy with the font color and the borders. But what I am going to do is I'm going to center everything like so. I'm now going to go back up to my Apply Formatting To drop down, and I'm going to define how I want the header row to look. So I want my header row to be in bold. I want the background fill of the header row to be, let's do a dark green color. And I want the font to be white so it stands out. I'm going to go back up to my Apply Formatting To, and I could do total row, first column, last column, but I'm going to say even banded rows. And I'm going to choose my fill color, which is going to be a lighter green colour. And I could carry on going through applying formatting for each element of my table. Now I'm happy with the way that looks, so I'm going to leave it just there, but I have a final selection to make at the bottom here. I can choose to make this table style available only in this document or in new documents based on this template. Now I'm not using any specific template for my document, so when you don't select a template, you're using the normal ... template. So pretty much most documents that you create are going to be based on the normal ... template. So if I was to select this option, new documents based on this template, pretty much every time I create a new blank document, my table style is going to be available. So I'm going to select this option and I'm going to say OK. And what you'll see now is that in our table styles drop down, we have a new group at the top called custom, and this is where you'll find any table styles that you've created. And I can just click it to apply it to my table. Now I can see here once I've applied it that first column is again in bold. So what I want to do is jump back into my table style, modify it and remove bold for that first column. So up to table styles, right click your mouse and you have an option for modify table style. So now I'm going to say apply formatting to first column. And what you'll see here is that in this window, it doesn't actually show as being in bold. But if it's showing in bold in your table, then just toggle it so it appears to be on in your modify style box. Click on OK and you'll find the reverse happens. Now a couple of other things I can also do in this right click menu. I could set this table style as default. So whenever I create a table, it's going to utilize this style. I could also choose to apply the table style but clear out all of the formatting, or apply and maintain formatting, which is basically just the same as clicking on the style. And of course, if I no longer need the table style, I have a delete table style option in here as well. So that is how you convert text to a table and also create and apply your own table styles. In the next module, we're going to delve a little bit more into formatting and we're going to talk about table breaks and repeat headings. So please join me for that. Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on Word 2019 Advanced. We're down in section 4 where we're taking a look at some of the more advanced options when it comes to working with tables in documents. And in the previous module, we took a look at how you can convert text to a table and then create your own table style. Now in this module, we're going to delve a little bit more into table properties, and I'm going to show you how you can split a table and also how you can repeat table headings. So in this document, I have a similar table to in the last module, but this one contains a lot more information. You'll see that this table runs across 3 pages. Now there's something very important to note when it comes to dealing with a larger table like this. So I'm going to select the table and I'm going to right click and jump into table properties. Now there's an option in here in the rows section that says allow rows to break across pages. And currently I have that ticked, and you'll probably find that you also have it ticked because it is the default setting. Now, when you have this option ticked, what that basically means is that if you have a row, for example, this bottom row of page 1, if this row contains a lot of information, the row will essentially break across both pages. So let me show you an example. I'm just going to make this row a little bit wider by adding in some returns. So now essentially what I have is this one row breaking across the pages, and that's being controlled by that little setting in table properties. So let's go back and select the entire table again. Now another way of selecting the entire table is to jump up to the layout ribbon, and in this first group click the drop down underneath select and choose select table. We can then jump into table properties using the properties button. And it takes us back to that same dialog box. So now if I was to untick allow rows to break across pages and click on OK, what you'll see now with this final row is that it will shift the entire row down onto the next page. So I no longer have a row splitting across 2 pages. So that's a really important point to note when you're dealing with tables that run across multiple pages. Now I'm going to Control Z to undo. and put that row back on that first page. Now, another thing you can do when it comes to a very large table is that you can actually split that table up. So if I decided that I wanted to split this table into two, all I need to do is select the row where I want it to split, jump up to the Table Tools Layout ribbon, and then in the Merge group, I have a Split Table option. And you'll see it splits where I was clicked. And what it's also done there, because this is now a new table, it's automatically applied my table style and made the first row a heading row. Now, I don't actually want it to look like that. So what I'm going to do here to fix that is I'm going to jump up and select the entire table again. I'm going to go across to the Design ribbon, and in the Table Style options, I'm going to untick Header Row. And that will remove that header formatting. So now essentially I have two tables in my document, this first one, which is a fairly small table, and then this second one, which spreads across the rest of the pages. Now, another little cool trick here that's worth knowing is that if you put a table into a blank document, it's going to insert right at the top of the page, which means that if I then want to go in and maybe add a title to the top of this document, I can't click. There's nowhere for me to click my cursor in order to add the title. Now, you could get around this by copying and pasting the table further down the page, but there is a much easier trick to get a blank line above any table that's inserted at the top of the document. Make sure that your mouse is clicked in the first table cell, so just before where it says country, and then if you press Ctrl-Shift-Enter, that is going to put a blank line above the table for you. And now I can add in my title. Like so, and I might want to give this some formatting. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, like so. So now I've got this table split into two. What if I want to do the reverse of that? What if I decide that I now no longer want them split and I want to re-merge them together? Well, again, there is a cool little keyboard shortcut that can do this for you very simply. So the first thing you need to do is once again select the bottom table. And then to merge it with the top table, if you do Alt, Shift, up arrow, it's as simple as that. Now, the final thing I want to show you with this table is how you can repeat the header row across multiple pages. So in order to demonstrate this a little bit clearer, I'm going to change the way that I'm viewing my document. So I'm up in the View ribbon. I'm going to go to the Zoom group and I'm going to say that I want to view my document as multiple pages. So this is going to put my 3 pages side by side, and this makes it a lot clearer to see. So you can see that on page 1, I have my column headings there, so country, product, units sold, so on and so forth. But those currently don't repeat across the other pages. And sometimes it can be a bit confusing if you're looking at data where you can't actually see those column headings to know what information you're looking at. So there is a very simple way to get those column headings to repeat across all of your pages. Now I'm going to go back to zooming into 100%. So I'm going to select the row that I want to repeat. So in this case, this is the header row. I'm going to right click my mouse and go into Table Properties. And the option that you need to select is this one just here, Repeat as Header Row at the top of each page. So let's put a tick in the box, click on OK. And now if we look down, I can see that I have those header rows repeated across all of the pages. So it's as simple as that. Now that option will repeat whichever row that you have selected, so that doesn't necessarily have to be the header row. If you have a different row within your table that you want to repeat at the top of each page, then all you would need to do is select it and run through the same process again. And that is pretty much it for this module. We've explored how we can split up a table and how we can join it back together again, how we can add a blank row above a table, and also how we can get those header rows to repeat across multiple pages. I hope you found that useful. I will see you in the next module. Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on Word 2019 Advanced. We're down in section 4 where we're looking at working with tables in Word documents. And so far we've seen quite a few really useful tips and tricks when it comes to manipulating tables. In this module, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can work with formulas to do calculations with table data. Now, formulas are more commonly associated with Excel, but you do have a selection of formulas that you can also utilize in Word. And the good news is the functions and the formulas should look very familiar if you are an Excel user, because they are pretty much exactly the same. So to add up numbers, we use the sum function. To find the minimum value, we use min, the maximum value, max, so on and so forth. However, there is a slight difference when it comes to how you select the data that you want to perform the calculation on. So in this module, I'm going to run through a few different ways that you can utilize formulas. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a totals row to the bottom of this table. So I'm going to press Control End to jump me all the way to the bottom of my table, and I'm going to quickly add a new row. Now there's numerous different ways that you can add rows into tables, but by far the quickest way is just to click your mouse just outside the last row of the table on the right hand side and then press your Enter key, and that's going to give you a brand new row. So I'm going to add a total row in, and I'm going to format this very slightly. So I'm going to make it stand out by applying some bold font. And I'm also going to give this a top border to separate it from the rest of the data. So I'm going to go into my borders group on the Table Tools Design ribbon. I'm going to select the width that I want the border. So I'm going to say 1.5 points. And I'm going to choose the pen color. We're going to have this as a dark green. And then the border that I'm going to add is just going to be a top border, like so. So now we have a real separation between our table data and our total row. Now in the last two columns of my table, I have sale price and gross sales. And it might be that I want to perform some calculations on these two columns. So let's start with the sales price. I'm going to click in that last row in that column. And we're going to add in a formula first of all that's basically just going to add up everything in this sales price column. So if we jump up to the Table Tools Layout ribbon, in that final group on the end, the data group, we have an option to add a formula. So let's click it. So this is our little formulas dialog box, and you can see that Word has made a guess as to what I might want to do with these numbers. And it's input the formula into the formula field for me. So it's doing a simple sum calculation, but instead of selecting cells like you would in Excel, it's got the word above, which basically means it's going to sum all of the numeric values above where I'm clicked, which is essentially the entire column. And it probably won't surprise you to know that if we had our table laid out in a slightly different way, I could utilize the word below to sum everything below. I can say sum everything to the left, or sum everything to the right. I can even combine two and say sum everything to the right and to the left. So you can use these directional words in order to essentially select the range that you want to sum. Now I'm going to stick with above in this case. I can then choose what I want my number format to be. So if I look at my number format in this column, I can see that I have 2 decimal places. So the number format I'm going to want to use is going to be this one just here that has those 2 decimal places. Now the paste function box at the bottom, this essentially shows you all of the functions that are available for you to use in a formula in a Word table. And we're going to look at a couple of these other ones in a moment, but for the time being, I'm happy with my sum calculation. I'm going to click on OK, and there we go. Now, unlike Excel, we don't have an autofill, so we can't essentially drag this formula across in order to total the gross sales column as well. So there's a couple of ways that we can get around this. We can either click in the gross sales column and repeat what we've just done by adding in the formula, or alternatively, I could copy the formula, Control C, and do a Control V to paste it in. Now you'll notice that it hasn't updated, but if I click and then right click and select Update Field, that will refresh it and give me my new total. So that's a quick little workaround. Now let's go back to this field, and I'm just going to delete out that value, And let's add in another formula. Now, another way that you can do this is instead of using the words above, below, left, and right to essentially make your selections, you can almost do cell references with word tables. Now, this isn't quite as intuitive as something like Excel, but let me show you how you can do it. So I'm going to cancel out of here for one moment and scroll to the top of this last page. Now, the way that you can utilize cell references is basically to count the number of columns in your table. So essentially in Word, the first column is column A, second column B, C, D, E, and F. So that is the first part of my cell reference. I then need to tell Word which row I want to utilize. Now, the problem here occurs because unlike Excel, the rows in our table are not numbered. And that might be fine if you have quite a small table, you can just count down. But in my table, I have a lot of rows. So how can I find out what my row numbers are? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a great way to do this. You either do have to count down, or for example, if I want to see how many rows I have in this table, what I can do is select the entire table, right-click my mouse and jump into Table Properties, and you'll see when we click on that Row tab, it says rows 1 to 124. So I know that I have 124 rows in my table. So if I was adding up something towards the end of this table, that's probably going to help me work out which row number I need. As I said, not particularly intuitive, but I'm just trying to show you some ways that you could possibly think about doing this. So just as an example, I know I've got 124 rows. Let's add up row 123 and 124 of the sale price column. So the sale price column is A, B, C, D, is column E. So I'm going to jump up into my formula. And this time I'm going to replace the word above and we're going to sum row 122 and 123 because 124 is the actual totals row. So that's going to be E122, comma, E123. We're going to choose our number format, which is decimal places. Click on OK, and it's giving me the answer of $22, which I can see very clearly is the sum of both of these numbers. Now I'm going to delete this out again and let's jump back up to our formula button. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you have a whole host of different functions that you can utilize in Word tables. So for example, I could count the number of items I have in this particular column. So what I can do is delete out the current formula, being careful to leave the equal sign there, and choose a different function that I want to use. So this time I'm going to utilize count, and I'm just going to say count everything above, click on OK, and you see it's given me $122. I'm probably going to want to go in there and just change that number formatting to just a plain number, like so. And just to show you one final example of a slightly more complicated formula, we're going to jump back into our formula button. We're going to remove what we have in there, and this time we're going to do an if calculation. So I'm going to select if. Now, if you don't know what if is, if you're not an Excel user, if basically does a logical test and it will give you one of two answers. For example, if you have some students that have all taken a test, you might want to say if student A receives a mark of greater than 70%, then he gets an A. So that is a logical test with an outcome. I'm just going to utilize this to show you very quickly how you can do an if calculation in your Word table. So let's do something pretty basic here. I'm going to say if the sum of, and let's use those cell references again, E122 and E123, if that is greater than 20, then I want you to put 20 in the cell. If it's not, I want you to put a 0. Now again, if you're not used to Excel formulas, then this will probably seem a little bit strange, a little bit complicated, but let's just read through this formula again. So we're saying if the sum, so the total of E122 and E123 is greater than 20, then I want the number 20 to appear in the cell. If it's not, then I want a 0 to appear in the cell. Now these are the two cells that we added up previously, so I know the result is going to be 21, which essentially is greater than 20. So what I'm expecting to see when I click OK here is the number 20 in this cell. And I'm going to make sure I have my number format set to an integer. And I'm going to say OK. And there we go. So a few different examples there of utilizing formulas in your word tables. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next module.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To get the files the instructor used in this tutorial and follow along, click over there. And click over there to watch more videos on YouTube from Simon Says It.